LeBron James is reportedly closing in on a deal with ESPN for a season-long documentary following his journey with the 76ers. As soon as the news broke, ESPN's own hosts began weighing in, and not all of them had positive things to say. Let me break down what's happening. Here's how fast this moved. LeBron James signs with the Philadelphia 76ers on a Friday. By the following Thursday, Andrew Marchand of The Athletic reports that James and ESPN are closing in on an agreement for a behind-the-scenes documentary series similar to Michael Jordan's The Last Dance, according to sources who weren't authorized to speak on it. One of those sources put the talks at the 1-yard line, football language for a deal that's basically done, just not signed. The terms being described are almost identical to what Jordan got in 2020. A camera crew follows LeBron for the entire season in Philadelphia. Producers dig into decades of archival footage from James' career that NBA crews have shot since his rookie year, including material that's never been shown publicly. No release date, no confirmed financial terms, just a deal that insiders say is close to finalized. That's the story. Now here's the reaction, and it came from every direction inside ESPN's own building. Stephen A. Smith has spent years as the loudest voice in the LeBron versus Jordan debate, and he wasn't quiet about this one either. Outlets covering the fallout noted that James continues to get pushback from analysts like Stephen A. Smith, who won't hand him the GOAT title over Jordan, and a documentary framed explicitly as LeBron's answer to The Last Dance landed right in the middle of that ongoing argument. The read from Smith's corner of the debate world was blunt. This wasn't just a farewell tour. It was viewed as another chapter in a long campaign to shape how history remembers him. Then there's Chris Canty, who took a completely different angle, not on the documentary, but on the pressure LeBron just signed up for by joining a stacked roster in Philadelphia. Canty argued on air that if the season goes sideways, the blame won't land on LeBron at all. He pointed out that nobody's going to blame the guy making $3.9 million if it doesn't work out. They're going to blame the guy making $60 million. https://sports.jo.com. Article/LeBron James signed run wrong $155,730,071.html, referring to Joel Embiid's contract next to LeBron's veterans minimum deal. Canty's larger point cut right to what makes this documentary premise so loaded. LeBron isn't walking into Philadelphia as the guy who has to be great. He's walking in as the accessory piece, the microphone standing next to someone else's story. And yet ESPN wants to build an entire season-long series around him anyway. Brian Windhorst, who has covered LeBron since his rookie year in Akron, offered the reporter's version of the same disbelief. Windhorst and colleagues detailed just how little warning anyone got before the Philadelphia signing itself, describing how even people close to the process had no idea which way James was leaning until a decision got made at 1 in the morning. https://www.espn.com's NBA story/ID 49,457,033 around NBA LeBron James move. Philadelphia 76ers puts pressure Maxey Brown NB the night before free agency opened. Windhorst's framing matters here because it's the same skepticism now being aimed at the documentary talks. A league source close to the situation flatly asked whether anyone really expected LeBron to hold a press conference for any of this, pointing out he didn't even show up publicly as a Laker until training camp back in 2018. The point being made across ESPN's own hallways was consistent. LeBron controls his own reveals on his own timeline, and a network-produced documentary about his last dance doesn't fit that pattern at all. And that skepticism turned out to be warranted almost immediately. Hours after Marchand's report went out, Maverick Carter, LeBron's business partner since high school, and the guy who runs the operation behind him, posted a direct denial. Carter wrote plainly that they are not doing anything like The Last Dance, and that LeBron doesn't even know when his last season is. https://LarryBrownSports.com's speech basketball LeBron James Last Dance documentary response 763,919. LeBron didn't just like the tweet. He reposted it to his own feed, putting his name directly behind the pushback. So within about 12 hours, you had a major outlet reporting a near-finished deal. ESPN's own hosts already dissecting what it means for the GOAT debate and for LeBron's leverage in Philadelphia. And the guy who runs LeBron's business affairs publicly rejecting the entire premise the report was built on. That's not a quiet contract signing. That's a live fight over how or whether this story even gets told. To understand why this blew up the way it did, you have to go back to how LeBron even ended up in Philadelphia in the first place, and why a documentary was reportedly already being discussed before he'd picked a team at all. Rewind to early July. LeBron is a free agent for what he's calling his last decision, and the league doesn't know where he's going. At a live taping of his own podcast at Fanatics Fest in New York, LeBron told the crowd he wanted to compete at a high level and join a franchise that shares his own model, practicing championship habits daily while trusting the process more than anything. https://www.espn.com said us NBA story /ID 48 1,377,855 2026 NBA Buzz latest live updates news intel NBA draft offseason. The phrase "trust the process" is inseparable from one team and one guy, Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. The crowd noticed instantly, but Philadelphia wasn't the only team in the room. The Miami Heat, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Golden State Warriors all made runs at him too. One Heat staffer reportedly had already scheduled vacation time, hedging his bets on whether LeBron would even pick Miami, and the whole situation was described as amusing to the small circle of people LeBron actually confided in. That's how tightly this was held. Even Rich Paul, his own agent, later admitted he had no real read on which direction LeBron was leaning until the two of them talked it through the night before the decision came down at 1 in the morning. Philadelphia's pitch had been building for weeks before that. The Sixers had just pulled off a trade for Jaylen Brown, flipping Paul George and 4 draft picks to Boston to get him. That move alone reportedly turned Philadelphia into a real contender in LeBron's mind. Philadelphia became a legitimate destination for James the moment it acquired Brown in a trade on July 1. https://www.espn.com says NBA story /ID 49,429,256 LeBron James signs Philadelphia 76ers NBA social media sports world reactions. From there, Embiid, Brown, and Tyrese Maxey all worked LeBron directly during his free agency process, with Maxey reportedly leading the recruiting push. Bob Myers, president of the ownership group that runs the Sixers, even made a guest appearance on Rich Paul's podcast to make a direct pitch, telling LeBron that if he were in the room, he'd tell him this was his best real chance to win, and that he needed to weigh everything else that mattered against that. 10 days after Brown's arrival, LeBron made his call. The deal itself is almost aggressively modest for a player of his stature. A 2-year, $8 million contract at the veteran's minimum, with a player option for the second year. https://www.espn.com/NBA story /YID 49,440,164 LeBron chooses 76ers sign 2-year $8 million contract. That's a fraction of the $52.6 million he made with the Lakers just 1 season earlier. LeBron made it clear this wasn't about money. Writing directly to fans, he said this was his last decision, that he wasn't chasing money or family, and that what he still wanted was to sacrifice, to work, to grind, and to compete for the feeling of winning. The reaction across the league was immediate and loud. Tyrese Maxey posted himself literally yelling in celebration in a gym. Jaylen Brown tweeted a phrase that's already been turned into billboards across the city. Pennsylvania's governor, Josh Shapiro, declared the day of the signing LeBron James Day statewide. Caitlin Clark reportedly reacted live mid-press conference when she heard the news. Fanatics confirmed LeBron's new jersey became the best-selling jersey for any athlete in any sport within 48 hours of release, breaking a record previously set by Shohei Ohtani's move to the Dodgers. Here's the thing that made this signing different from every other LeBron free agency saga, though. The stakes on the floor barely matter to what happened next. Philadelphia hasn't won a title in over 4 decades. They went 45-37 the previous season and got swept in the second round. None of that stopped ESPN's own insiders from grading the move as one of the best value signings in recent memory, given what LeBron's actually being paid to still perform at a near all-NBA level. So by the time the ink was dry on the contract, LeBron had already reshaped a franchise, broken jersey sales records, and gotten a governor to name a day after him. And it was into that exact wave of attention, while the ESPN report of the documentary was still fresh, that the Last Dance comparison got attached to his name, which raises the obvious question: what actually happened the last time ESPN built a documentary series around a legacy chasing history? And why does that comparison carry so much weight? To understand why ESPN's hosts reacted the way they did, you need to understand what The Last Dance actually was, and why LeBron has spent 2 decades measuring himself against it without ever saying so directly. Jordan's documentary aired in 2020, built around the Chicago Bulls' 1997-98 championship season. but weaving in the full arc of his career and the dynasty around him. It featured extended access to Steve Kerr, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman, giving fans a look at the internal tension of a team while it was actively winning. The series became a cultural moment, helped along by the fact that it aired during a period when live sports had shut down and people were stuck at home with nothing else to watch. It went on to win a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Documentary or Nonfiction Series. Producer Mike Tollin has described the strange coincidence behind how it even started. The same day Jordan told him to go make it, LeBron happened to be parading through downtown Cleveland with a championship trophy of his own, having just ended a 52-year title drought for the city. Tollin called it the universe having a sense of humor. That coincidence has quietly followed LeBron for years. A decade ago, LeBron told a reporter directly that part of what drove him was chasing a ghost, the one that played in Chicago. That comment came right after he won his first title with Cleveland. So the framing that ESPN's insiders and outside analysts immediately reached for when this documentary report broke wasn't random. It was the continuation of a rivalry LeBron has openly admitted shapes how he thinks about his own career. That's exactly why the reaction split so hard once the report went public. Some fans were genuinely excited. Anyone who considers LeBron the greatest player of all time was ready to watch a series built entirely around him getting the same treatment Jordan got. But others read it as something closer to manipulation. Commentary circulating around the report argued that the whole project plays directly into the hands of people who already believe LeBron has spent years trying to control the narrative around his own legacy, especially since his career technically isn't even finished yet. He's about to play a 24th season, and the documentary would be airing before anyone knows how the story ends. One widely shared reaction bluntly stated that no amount of promotion could convince people he's better than Jordan, arguing that this documentary was another attempt to chase the GOAT title through media control rather than through what happens on the floor. https://thacholeague.com/LeBron James and ESPN Last Dance type documentary Jordan GOAT/. Even ESPN's own coverage acknowledged how steep the climb is for any project trying to replicate what Jordan's series did. Analysts pointed out that Jordan's documentary landed during a moment when there was genuinely nothing else on television, a circumstance that can't be repeated. They also noted a detail that undercuts the entire Last Dance framing on a factual level. LeBron isn't even confirmed to be finishing his career after this season. He's got a player option for 2027-28, meaning the whole final chapter premise the documentary is being built around might not even be true by the time cameras stop rolling. That detail is worth sitting with, because it's the exact thing Maverick Carter seized on. Analysts had already noted the tension before Carter said a word publicly, pointing out that even though there had been reported deal talk, Carter denied the project would be anything like the Jordan documentary specifically because LeBron hadn't decided that this upcoming season would actually be his last one. https://www.yardbarker.com's NBA articles LeBron James reportedly nearing deal to emulate Michael Jordan with ESPN Doc Ses 1333204411892. In other words, the entire Last Dance label wasn't just a marketing comparison to Carter. It was a factual claim about LeBron's plans that Carter says nobody in his camp had made. That's the tension sitting underneath everything ESPN's hosts were reacting to. A documentary that's being sold on the premise of finality attached to a player who hasn't confirmed he's finishing anything. A comparison to Jordan that LeBron has privately chased for 20 years, being publicly rejected by his own business partner the moment it hit the headlines. And a network with its own hosts, split between genuine excitement for the access and open skepticism about whether the whole framing was ever accurate in the first place. So how did LeBron's camp actually respond once the denial went out? And what does it tell us about who's really controlling this story? Within hours of Marchand's report going out, Maverick Carter didn't issue a careful statement through a publicist. He went straight to X. His post was direct. They weren't doing anything like The Last Dance, and LeBron doesn't even know when his last season is. LeBron didn't just favorite it or ignore it. He reposted Carter's exact words to his own feed, putting his personal weight behind the denial within minutes of the report circulating. That's a meaningful detail on its own. LeBron has a long history of letting Carter speak for him on business matters while staying quiet himself. Carter has been doing this since high school. The two of them are part of the same management structure that's guided LeBron's career off the court for 2 decades, alongside Rich Paul. When Phil Jackson once referred to LeBron's business circle dismissively as a posse, it was Carter, not LeBron, who fired back publicly, saying at the time that he took real offense to the word and the characterization behind it, framing it directly as disrespect toward grown men doing serious work. That pattern repeated here. The documentary report broke, and Carter was the one who stepped in front of it immediately. Outlets tracking the fallout described the situation as a story with two competing halves running at the same time. Industry sources maintaining that negotiations were genuinely advanced, while the person closest to LeBron's business operation was publicly insisting there was no sanctioned production and that LeBron hadn't declared anything about his final season. One outlet summarized it plainly: until ESPN or LeBron's team put out an official announcement, the documentary should be treated as a reported negotiation, not a locked project. Neither ESPN nor representatives for LeBron have agreed to comment on the record about where things actually stand. That silence, paired with Carter's public denial, has left the story in a strange in-between place, a deal that sources describe as being 1 yard from the goal line, next to a flat denial from the man who runs LeBron's business affairs. Both things are apparently true at once, which is exactly the kind of contradiction that made ESPN's own hosts spend segment after segment picking through it rather than moving on. What's notable is that this isn't LeBron's first time building something in this exact space. Years earlier, LeBron and Carter had already produced a 3-part documentary examining NBA culture through a partnership with Showtime, directed by Gotham Chopra, with Carter serving as executive producer. That project gave LeBron and Carter direct experience with exactly the kind of format being discussed now: long-form docuseries-style storytelling built around his career. It's part of why outlets covering this story noted that The Last Dance comparison isn't just a marketing label being slapped on from outside. It's a production model that LeBron and Carter have studied closely themselves, on their own terms, through their own company. That company is Spring Hill, the production business LeBron and Carter founded together, responsible for projects like Space Jam, A New Legacy, and Hustle. Spring Hill recently merged with Fullwell 73, the company behind The Late Late Show and The Kardashians, a deal LeBron reacted to with a single word on Instagram: proud. That merger, together with a 4-year first-look deal LeBron and Carter had already signed with NBC Universal years earlier, shows exactly why the ESPN documentary talks matter so much to LeBron's side of the table. This isn't a player agreeing to let a network tell his story. It's a media mogul weighing whether ESPN's version of the format fits into an empire he already controls in-house. That's the real fight sitting underneath Carter's denial. It was never really about whether cameras would follow LeBron this season. Multiple reports agree. A camera crew is expected to document his time in Philadelphia, regardless of how the final deal gets structured. The fight is about who owns the framing. ESPN wants a Last Dance sequel because that label sells. Carter wants a project defined on LeBron's terms, without a label attached that presumes the ending before LeBron himself has decided what the ending is. So where does that leave things heading into the season? And what happens next? Here's where things stand right now. ESPN's report says the deal is close, described by a source as being at the 1-yard line, with a camera crew expected to follow LeBron throughout his first season in Philadelphia, regardless of how the final agreement gets papered. Carter's denial hasn't killed the project, it's rejected the label attached to it. Both of those things are sitting on the table at the same time, and neither ESPN nor LeBron's camp has closed that gap publicly. What's not in dispute is the footage itself. Multiple reports confirm the plan involves pulling from decades of existing material. Game footage, personal footage, some of it never released publicly, going all the way back to LeBron's rookie season, when NBA crews first started filming him as a teenager. Whatever the final structure ends up being, that archive is enormous, and it's been building since before LeBron was old enough to vote. Meanwhile, the actual basketball stakes that would give any documentary its spine are just getting started. LeBron walks into Philadelphia as the 7th highest paid player on his own roster, playing alongside Embiid, Brown, and Maxey, on a team trying to end a championship drought that stretches back to 1983. Chris Canty's red on the pressure sitting on that roster hasn't gone away. If the season falls apart, the story ESPN's hosts have already previewed is that the blame lands on the guy making the bigger check, not the guy playing for the veterans minimum. If it works, LeBron gets to add a Philadelphia championship to a resume that already includes rings in Cleveland and Miami, one with 3 different franchises. Windhorse instinct about how LeBron controls his own reveals hasn't been proven wrong yet either. LeBron didn't do a press conference for the 76ers signing. He didn't do one for the Lakers back in 2018. Whatever this documentary becomes, it's a safe bet LeBron will control exactly how and when the world finds out the details are locked, the same way he's controlled almost every major reveal of his career. And Stephen A. Smith's corner of the debate isn't closing anytime soon either. As long as LeBron plays, and as long as there's a project attaching him to Jordan's exact format, that argument stays alive on ESPN's air every single week, regardless of what happens on the floor in Philadelphia this season. What we do know is this: LeBron James signed with the Philadelphia 76ers on a contract far below his market value, driven by a desire to compete rather than collect a paycheck. Within days, a major documentary deal with ESPN was reported to be nearly finalized, drawing direct comparisons to the most successful sports documentary ever made. ESPN's own hosts spent the following days dissecting what that comparison means for the GOAT debate, for the pressure on his new roster, and for how much control LeBron actually has over his own story. And within hours of that report landing, the man who's run LeBron's business affairs since high school stepped in front of the camera's narrative and drew a hard line around what this project is allowed to be called. Whatever gets signed, whenever it gets announced, one thing is already settled. LeBron James spent this offseason making sure that even in his 24th season on a rebuilt roster in a brand new city, the terms of his own story still get set by him first.